Hi everybody, it's Tom from Vehicle Visionary. Today I'm at Holmes Honda and we're going to do a nose-to-nose and side-by-side comparison of the 11th generation of the Honda Civic and the 11th generation of the Honda Accord. Now, in the interest of fair reporting, based on what was available on the lot, they're not the same trim levels. A lot of you probably know that already. The Accord is the EX, the Civic is the Sport, but we're going to do the best job we can to compare the two with the 11th generation models and see which one all of you like better. Looking forward to seeing what you have to say down in the comments section. So for the 11th generation of each model, we'll see some similarities and we will see some differences. Obviously, being two different sizes of sedan, well, that's going to be a given that there will be some differences in size overall. The size of the front grille on the Civic being smaller, but it has a little bit more of what I consider to be a sporty flair. You can see that the front end right here actually comes down into the area where the grille is, a little bit above that, so it's going to have a combination of area to house the Honda logo between the grille and the actual body work right here. Something we don't see on the Accord. A larger grille. Everything stops right here where the grille starts, and then the Honda logo is going to purely be in the center of the grille itself. Which one do you think looks more sporty? The lower grilles on both, well, don't have anywhere close to a similar look. A little bit of a honeycomb look here with the Civic, and then with the front spoiler, a very sporty look. Now, one thing that will be different between the two is that with the Civic, there is no side air curtain built into the front end. On the new generation of the Accord, there is. That's what this is, allowing air to flow through the front end and help improve aerodynamics. But one thing that is going to have semblance of similarity, a little bit here at least, is going to be the headlight housing. And while we have the blinker right here and the daytime running lights right here, we've also got this area up here. That's something we don't have on the Accord. You just have the blinker housing and the daytime running light kind of working in conjunction with one another. But the headlights themselves, LED, do have a similar look to one another. So that's definitely a difference, a big difference you can see between what we had with the 10th generation of the Accord and now the 11th generation where that is concerned. And the hood lines, to a degree, are somewhat similar. So we're going to have the area on the Civic that comes up, rises just a little bit, nice large bulge in the center. We do have an area of the line right here on both sides, obviously, where that's going to go up and it's going to disappear just right as it gets to the top of the hood. However, on the Accord, it does have some differences in that area. We've got the nice large line right here. Then we'll have the peak, and then it's going to drop down just a little bit, another peak and a nice large center bulge right here that's going to definitely look somewhat similar on both. But it's this area right here that really separates the hoods apart from one another. And again, to a degree, the front fenders are going to have a similar look to each other. In my personal opinion, I'm thinking the Civic looks a little bit more sporty, but you'll notice this area where your fender flare would be is going to be flat on both models. That's going to have a nice look to it. Nothing looking the same between the two in that respect as far as the overall design of the front fenders, but you do have some similar lines. The line between the front end and where the fender starts right here on each, well, looking somewhat the same. But again, at the same time, they are quite different. And now we'll focus in on the mirror design between the two. Ironically, it seems, at least based on what I'm seeing right here, it looks like the mirror on the Civic is a little bit larger than that of the Accord. Both having a similar design, but you'll notice that the line from the rear of the mirror housing, the mirror cap, actually is just one solid line. Over here, you don't have a line really. There's a little bit of a line there, but it's not as pronounced. But this housing just, I don't know, looks a little bit larger, but it looks a little bit more sporty at the same time. Let's take a look from this angle, and you can probably see a little bit better what that looks like. It is going to have a little bit more of a shape. This mirror on the Accord is a little bit elongated compared to what we have here. It's a little bit more narrow as far as the width goes, but both still look nice. I'm always curious to know which one you feel is more sporty. Now, again, trim levels. So we're going to see some differences here, but looking at the overall design of the lines for the windows, everything pretty much consistent until we get back here to the rear quarter window, where on the Civic, we're going to have it have a little bit of a rise right here. Then it's going to go up pretty good. It's going to flatten out right here and just kind of have the contour of what the overall design of the window looks like with what we have as far as that surround goes, the trim goes. However, on the Accord, it comes back, and this area, it's a little bit larger, but this area is going to be flat. And then when we get to the chrome surround, it's going to just go straight up. It doesn't have that kind of a hump to it, and then it comes back. I don't know. It just seems to be a little bit more sporty over here on this side with the Civic. And overall body lines on the side of each vehicle, well, there's no doubt that it's a little bit more flat with the Accord. You don't have quite the body lines and character lines that you do with the Civic. We've got a more pronounced line right here at the top where the doors are, where the rear fender is back here, working its way up to the roof pillar. On the Accord, it has a completely different look, and you can see, in fact, well, it's a little hard to tell with this exterior color, the gray exterior color, but we'll try and do our best to show that to you. But when everything works its way up to the door handles and to the top of the doors, everything on the upper portion of the body here, on the Accord, it works its way up, kind of has a flare out, and then goes up further onto the body. With the Civic, you've got a real nice contour here. It works its way up, kind of into the body, and then back up a little bit, and then it works its way up at the same time. Again, in my personal opinion, I'm thinking that the Civic has the more sporty look compared to the Accord in this particular area. Now, moving on to the tail lights. Obviously, the fully redesigned Honda Accord tail lights, well, we got rid of that stapler look that so many people talked about. But the tail lights here on the Accord, a little bit more narrow, although I do think Honda did an excellent job back here. The lines look very nice, very aggressive, very sharp looking lines. With the Civic, well, pretty much the same is what I would say, although they do look completely different from one another, minus my tongue twist there. One way or another, I think this particular taillight design definitely fits the Civic a lot better. If we had the same thing, at least in my personal opinion, from the Accord to the Civic, if these were both looking the same, I don't think it would match the vehicles, even though I have to say I'm a little bit more in favor of what we have here. But I think Honda has done a great job with what they did here with these taillights on the rear of the Accord. It just seems to fit better. Now, let's take a look at the rear, which to some degree, again, we're going to have a similar look, although obviously a little bit larger sedan. We're going to have a larger, longer back window, but overall the design is going to be basically the same with that and with the trunk. We're going to have the spoiler that comes up off, it's just built in, but coming up just a little bit of an angle right here on the trunk itself. Not quite as pronounced on the Accord as what we have on the Civic, although it's still here. It just doesn't seem to be quite the same, so kind of taking away from that sportiness based on what I'm seeing right there. One thing that is going to be the same back here is that, or excuse me, let's say different back here. You have the exhaust pipe that's far more pronounced with the Civic. And while you can see the exhaust from the right angle, you can see the dual exhaust pipes, one on each side here on the Accord. They're not as easy to see because of how they're kind of hidden and tucked up under the bumper as they are. What about the differences in cargo capacity? Let's pop the trunk on each one and take a look at what those numbers are. The difference is ultimately, well, about a couple of cubic feet. 16.7, which is the same as the 10th generation for the Accord. So 16.7 cubic feet here. When we go over to the Accord, we're going to have 14.4 up to 14.8 cubic feet. So a little bit of a difference there. Obviously, if you want more, you can go with the Civic sedan. There is no, or excuse me, the Civic hatchback. There is no Accord hatchback, so that makes a difference. You're going to use the same release right here on each model to lower your rear seats. Just to show you how this works on each model, very simple to do. All we're going to do is pull those releases right there, and then hopefully, there we go, we can pull that down. There you go on the Accord. Same thing on the Civic. Very simple, very easy, but at the same time, some people may not have seen this, so figure I'll go ahead and show you anyway. One area where you will see tremendous difference is going to be availability for engine options. With the 23 Accord, more focused on hybrid technology compared to what we've seen in the past. With the Civic, you're going to find that more sporty flair. There is no Accord Type R. You do have the Civic Type R, obviously, that is making, I believe it's 315 horsepower for 2023, if I remember correctly. I may have that number wrong, but we'll figure that out on the screen if I'm wrong. You can still get a manual transmission for the Civic, something you haven't been able to do for quite a while with the Accord. And there are multiple engine options available depending on your situation and what you want with either model. One thing that is consistent throughout with both is going to be the fact that they both will come standard with front wheel drive. Tell me what your thoughts are on that subject. Would you like to see an all-wheel drive option for the Civic and the Accord in the future? And obviously we're going to have a little bit less room in the back seat area with the Civic, but just to show you what is here as far as the overall design goes. Comfortable soft touch materials here. When I put my arm on there and give it the arm rest test with the arm, it's comfortable. Trying to get that out without getting tongue twisted, but we do have a smaller door bin back here, that's for sure, but enough room for a nice sized bottle and or a few little snacks to go in there. And we'll hop inside, and in this particular case, this being the sport trim level, we're not going to have the rear seat pocket on one back seat. Obviously not on either one, no air conditioning vents, and no USB connectivity here in the rear. So the only option here in the Civic for drink holders are going to be those door bins right there, unless you're sitting in the front seat. And with the rear doors on the Accord, well, pretty much the same with the door bin as what we saw with the Civic. The overall design a little bit different, but there are a lot of similarities at the same time. Now with this Accord EX trim level, you will find the seat back pocket on the rear of the passenger seat only, but pretty much the same thing for the most part as what we saw with the Civic. No rear air conditioning vents, no connectivity. But one thing you will find here will be the fold down armrest with the cup holders built in, and again, trim level, okay? So we're not comparing apples to apples where this is concerned, but here with the Accord EX, you do have the sunroof. And we'll go ahead and hop into the interior in the front seat with the Civic. Honestly, I think the music that you get, kind of that introduction tone of sorts that you get when you hop into either model, it sounds a little bit better here for some reason than it does in the Accord over there. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just me, but that is something that I noticed. Now, you will see differences between the instrument cluster for the Civic right here compared to what we have with the Accord that we're going to be looking at in just a minute. You can easily see the differences in the design of the dashboard. You don't have the same honeycomb look with the Accord that you do here with the Civic. Similar on the screens, and I do like what Honda has done here with that vertical screen, the 90-degree angle. That's going to reduce glare compared to what we saw with that angled in version with the previous generation of both models. But a very similar look here in that respect. We're going to also see similarities with the controls for the air conditioning, with everything that we have here with our connectivity, the same shifter setup. So the good thing, no push button shifter, because I know a lot of you don't like that. Some of you do, it just depends. And then you'll have your mode selector right here. Let's run through our modes and just see how things look. You can see normal, econ, and then we go up, we've got sport right there. And then the same look for everything else here, the power parking brake, brake hold mode, there's your cup holders. And obviously we will see some differences with the center console and the lid for the center console. All right, as we hop inside, let's listen. It's not that it sounds bad, it just seems like it sounds a little bit better over there with the Civic. I just noticed that, personal opinion on that, but here's the big difference. You can't avoid it. This is my opinion. You might have a different opinion. Tell me in the comments section. But I think the new Accord has a better looking digital instrument cluster than does that of the Civic. And you can see when you turn the headlights on, you don't just get that little indicator icon on the dash. You get to see that the lights are actually on right there with the animated graphic. That looks really nice. I think Honda has done a really good job in this particular area. You can see the differences between the two steering wheels. And like I said, in this particular case, depending on trim level, well, you have different screen sizes available for both. And so you can see some of the differences and variations here, or similarities, I should say. But the big difference you're going to see is right here. Like I said, the design of this area of the front dashboard, or I should just call it not the front dashboard. Is there a rear dashboard? No, apparently not. Come on now, Tom, you can do better than that. Yeah, it's okay. You can laugh at me instead of with me on that one, but you can see the differences here. That is one of the areas where Honda has definitely set things apart. I'm always curious to know what your thoughts are on that. If you like it, if you don't, does it make a difference? And then, as I said before, very similar looks here with the controls for the air conditioning. You'll see some differences to a degree there, but the overall layout and everything is going to be the same. Here is everything for our controls, or our options for connectivity. Like I said, you still have that traditional style shifter here for the center console, not push button, but you do have some of the same things here as well. You can go into your econ mode. You can turn the stop start feature off, or idle stop as it's often called. But let's see what the difference is here with the center console. A little bit larger, but not by a whole lot. It's really more length than anything else. The depth, probably about the same. I haven't measured those, so I couldn't tell you for sure. But overall, within the interior, those are the similarities. And if you were curious, the Accord remote is on the left and the Civic remote is on the right. So you can see that there really are no differences between the two remotes, in case anybody was wondering. All right, as we get out on the road for our test drive, I'm going to test drive the Accord and see how I can compare it to that of the Civic driving experience. And I can tell you right off the bat, the Accord drives well. It has a good, comfortable ride quality. The interior is nice and roomy. But the big difference between the two is that the Civic, with retuned suspension, retuned chassis for the 11th generation, you could really tell a difference there. The Civic just feels like it's literally sucking itself down to the road. It feels very planted and very stable. And not to say that the Accord feels unstable or anything along those lines. That most certainly isn't true. However, it just doesn't give you quite that same sporty driving experience. But it does handle well. It feels very stable. It has a good, comfortable ride. The steering is nice and responsive to the touch of your hand. But again, we're talking about two different vehicles where that aspect is concerned. Easy to see out of both. You do have the blind spot monitoring, all those good safety features, Honda Safety or Honda Sensing, that has adaptive cruise control and lane departure, road departure mitigation, lane keeping assist. Let's see if we can get some of those out real quick. But the thing that I like the most about the Civic really is the handling characteristics. I haven't spent as much time in the 11th generation of the Accord as I have in the Civic yet. I might eventually have a different view of all of that, but I have to give the handling to the Civic. You're going to have a little bit more room within the interior of the Accord, obviously, being that it's a little bit larger overall size vehicle compared to the Civic. But both are easy to see out of, both handle well. They're definitely going to get you around with no problem. Great for big city driving, no matter which model you may choose, as, well, they're not giant vehicles, we'll put it that way. The technology in both is easy to use, and it's easy to learn for those who may be saying, I'm stepping out of my 30-year-old vehicle. Maybe you've had an Accord or a Civic for the last 30 years, and it's just time to step into something new, and you're looking at the 11th generation of either model. Well, guess what? Even though there's a lot of technology here that is different from what has been in the past, well, where Honda is concerned, you definitely will find out that it's easy to use. Now, the acceleration of each model is good. I'm just kind of easing into the pedal there. A little bit of an acceleration test with the Accord. But depending on which Civic you choose to buy, you go with the Type R. Obviously, you're going to have the most bang for your buck with horsepower and torque. The 6-speed manual transmission, something you can't get here. But overall, comparing the two, they definitely have a lot of similarities in the interior. They're both comfortable. They're fun to drive, that's for sure. I think the Civic is a little bit more fun to drive if you want to drive spiritedly, no matter which trim level you may buy. But the Accord here, it feels a little bit higher up on the ladder, so to speak. Not to insult the Civic by any means, but when I say that, it's not that it feels that much better. It just feels like a mid-size sedan should feel. And the Civic, well, isn't meant to feel that way. So ultimately, depending on your situation, if you want something that handles really well and has that fun, sporty driving experience, well, the Civic is definitely for you. You can, to a degree at least, now I haven't driven the Accord Sport yet, but to a degree you can have that same experience with what I've experienced here with the EX trim level. We'll see what happens when I can get my hands on a Sport, which should be pretty soon, and see if maybe the handling characteristics are better there than what I've experienced here, and maybe then I can draw a better conclusion and pass that on to you in a future video. So now it's your time to talk. Which 11th generation of these two models, the Accord or the Civic, do you think Honda did a better job with? Or maybe you think they did a great job with both. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are if you were going to buy one of these as a 2023 model. Which one would it be? Gotta say a special thanks to my friends here at Holmes Honda for loaning me both of these models for the day. And a special thanks to all of you for being kind enough to give me the opportunity to give you a vision for your next vehicle. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn about other vehicles you may wish to consider purchasing, check out the video that's on the screen right now, and I'll see you there.